Education, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Larry Cohen.
Here.
Betsy Dennis.
Here.
Jennifer Edge. Here. Christine Galvo. Here. Frank Burnett.
Here.
Georgia Patchen.
Here.
Mary Beth Stevens. Here. Bill Zopp.
Here.
Melissa Thompson. Here. Mr. Hilberg, will you review the fire exits?
The fire exits are at the rear of the auditorium.
How would you like to introduce our workshop?
Across the vast state, great Empire State, this time of year is school budget. And as a prelude to the budget votes, schools are required to have a budget hearing. This evening, we're very fortunate to have the knowledgeable and most erudite business official we have here at Beacon City Schools, none other than Anne Marie Corderoni, who is going to regale us with the facts and figures relevant to this year's budget.
Thank you, Mr. Hilberg. Good evening. I'd like to start off by saying that we are proud to present a budget-to-budget increase from last year to this year of 1.07%. The budget process was started in January, and we went through with all of our committee meetings. We met with the board at workshop, and we progressively built a budget that we believe is sound and will be able to maintain the programs that we offer right now. We're also happy to say that our tax levy increase for the 13-14 budget is 2.79%, which is in line with our tax cap, and I'll go into that in a few more minutes. But the important part is this proposed budget does preserve the current level of programs that we currently offer in the Beacon City School District. So that's good news, because other districts are suffering to do the same.
Excuse me, did you say that all our current programs, including music and art and our academic programs, will remain in place?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, thank you.
So what's included in this proposed budget? So we are including all our full academic program, which includes the AP and the DCC courses that we offer at the high school. As Mr. Hilberg said, the art, music in the elementary, middle school, and high school will all remain the same for 13-14. The full athletic program, which includes modified sports. The pre-K and the full-day kindergarten programs will remain the same. The pre-K will remain in the district. We had talked about other things in the past, but it will remain here as it has in the past. The guidance and the support services, clubs and after-school activities, field trips including sharp reservation for the 5th grade, community use of school facilities, and the class sizes remaining at the current levels. This slide tries in a simple way to show the tax cap calculation. The important numbers, really the important number on the screen obviously is the bottom, which is 2.79, which we are saying is our levy increase. So we are right in line with what the cap should be. What allowed the cap to go up a little bit more than the 2%, you'll see, is the plus teachers retirement. We were given an exclusion of $554,000. Anything over a 2% increase in either employees' retirement or teachers' retirement, the districts are allowed to get an exclusion. So that is what the additional 2% means for Beacon. There's lots of cost savings in the proposed budget. One of the major areas that we were able to cut money from would be the retirements. We have 5 teachers retiring in the 13-14 school year. Of those 5, 2 of those positions will not be replaced, which is good news for us. The other 3 will be replaced, but they will be replaced at a lower salary. So we had cost savings there as well. There's clerical positions. We had a realignment of some of the clerical positions in central office, and we had several others retire. Again, the money we can save through breakage. Aides, monitors, and custodial. If someone were to leave the district, we did not replace them. We looked at all the positions across the district and were able to not fill some of the areas. So those are some cost savings without having layoffs. We just didn't replace through attrition. We had careful cost containment in all the budget areas. In the workshops that we presented, we had the department chairs work with both the superintendent and I in making sure their budget areas were either the same as last year or slightly increased just based on contractual salary increases. Everything else, all the other budget lines across remain the same. We had frugal debt management. We had several bonds that we were able to refund this year. Refunding is the school district terminology, but it's very similar to refinancing, like refinancing your mortgage. The interest rates right now are wonderful. Beacon has a great credit rating. Every time we go out to float bonds for our capital project or to do refunding, we have a AAA3 rating from Moody's, which is great, which allows us to get a much better interest rate. So that actually saved. We did pay off one debt payment, was the last in 12-13, so that also helped as well. You'll see in the numbers later that that area significantly decreased from this year to what's projected for next year. Negotiated agreements, we had several union contracts that were up for negotiation, and we were able to settle them at an extremely modest increase, which actually helped us prepare the budget for 13-14 and beyond. The next couple of slides will just show you the three parts of the budget. You will get a newsletter sometime this week, and it will show you everything based on these three, the administrative, the instructional, and the capital areas of the budget. That's what the state requires us to present, so that's the format that you will see. This is a comparison of 12-13 to 13-14 in those three areas. You'll notice on the far right-hand column the increases in administrative and instructional. Both of those areas carry the health benefits, the employees' retirement, and the teachers' retirement related to the salaries in those areas, which shows a little bit of a bigger increase. You'll also notice in the capital area the significant decrease, and that's due to the debt repayment, and you'll also see the refunding of the bonds, the interest, and the principal. So this slide basically explains how we're going to pay for the budget that we're putting out to the voters next Tuesday. Some of the significant differences on this slide. Last year, as you remember, we received a $250,000 legislative grant, which we did not get this year. And we also used a transfer from capital, that was capitalized interest that we had last year that we do not have in the projected 13-14. The differences in 13-14, you'll see a $275,000 tax reduction reserve. And as you remember, when we sold the old Beacon High School several years ago, the money of the proceeds from that went into a reserve. That reserve is significant, has to be used to reduce the tax levy over the next 10 years. So we were lucky enough that over the last few years we did not have to use that. So we have a plan in action to systematically reduce that. So instead of taking it all in 1 year and making the levy be less, we're going to systematically use it over the next few years to keep the levy below the tax cap. The other important part is the state and federal aid number for 13-14. In earlier presentations that we did to the board, that number was less when we got the governor's run. But thankfully, when the budget was signed at the end of March, and it was the legislative run, that $23 million includes a $600,000 increase that the legislators gave us. So we were extremely happy about that, and that actually helped us maintain the programs that we're presenting for next year's 13-14 budget and keep the levy at the required amount. So just to put this levy in a little bit of a perspective, we went back and we calculated what the 5-year average was prior to the tax cap here in Beacon, and the average was 3.4% of a levy increase. and the 12-13 levy increase at the cap. Last year's cap was 2.07, which is what we levied the taxes for. And our proposed 13-14 levy increase at the cap is 2.79. So you're seeing the cap is making it stay below what our 5-year average had been. Also on the ballot next Tuesday will be a Proposition 2, which will be asked for vehicle replacements. We are putting up on the ballot 3 72-passenger buses and 1 20-passenger van. The total of the proposition would be $367,000. As you remember, we get transportation state aid of 57.7%, which means that we get back that much of the $367,000. I always forget to put my bus up there. I just want to remind everybody what the role of the Transportation Department is, and we spoke about this in great detail during the workshop portion. The main portion of transportation, obviously, is to bring children safely back and forth to school, but our buses are used for lots of other reasons. They handle all of our sports program. They do a work program midday from the high school. After-school programs, the IRP, the elementary program that we run, we do provide bus transportation home for the students. As many field trips as we can muster, if you're doing it during the day, when we're not transporting kids, we do use our school buses for that. We have 504 medical requests during the day that children need to go out of their school building. And displaced or homeless students. We are required by law to transport those students into the district to go to their home school, as well as just the timely of the special education out-of-district placements. So our buses are very important to us. Several years ago, our bus proposition failed, and we were required to go and do an emergency lease. The emergency lease runs for only 1 year. You don't get state aid on it. So it ended up being more money out of the general fund budget than we would have spent if we had passed the bus proposition. So it's very important for us to be able to maintain our fleet. So everybody kind of wants to get an idea of how much their taxes will go up. So I've done a slide on each of the municipalities like I've had in the past just to give you an idea. And in the city of Beacon, if you have a median assessed value home, which calculates to about $290,500 with STAR. For the budget, your taxes will increase about $133 per year. If it's for the budget and the bus proposition, it's $172 per year. And if you were to look at that on a monthly basis, that's $14.33 per month or 31 cents a day. In the town of Fishkill, the median home value is $353,500 with the STAR exemption. The budget will cost the average taxpayer $158 per year. The budget and bus proposition together is about $208. And if you split that out, it's $17.33 per month and 57 cents per day. Town of Wappinger. Our median assessed value in that town is $350,500 with the STAR exemption. Budget increase for the year, $157. If it's together, budget and bus proposition, about $209, which is about $17.42 a month or 57 cents per day. Contingency budget. We always hate to talk about this, but we must. So if our budget does not pass next week, the board has the decision of either going to contingency budget or putting another budget up for vote in June. Last year, with the new tax cap law, the way you calculate contingency budget has significantly changed. Prior, you used to get a cost of living increase. Now, the contingency budget must be a 0% increase, which means the levy must stay exactly the same as it was last year. So for us, that would mean going back to the budget that we're so happy to present with all the programs that we're offering and have to cut another $656,000. So the other part of that is where does the money come from? There are certain things that are mandatory on a contingency budget. You're cutting all equipment purchases, unless they're directly related to health and safety. You're requiring all the organizations to pay full cost for the use of facilities. Right now, when we rent out our buildings, we have a lot of not-for-profit organizations that use our buildings for free. So those organizations would not be allowed to do that under a contingency plan. We would have to calculate what a fair market value would be, and we would have to charge them. So that would be a significant, that would upset the activities of a lot of the organizations that use our school buildings. We would have to reduce or eliminate the building use to save energy costs. That would be another way to try to do that. Obviously, the other ones, the next three really hurt, cutting athletics, clubs, and student activities at all levels. We have to look at non-mandated things to look at, so that's why these are on the table. Eliminating the art, music, the electives other than the minimums that were required for high school graduation, and actually looking at increasing class size to 35. None of these things on this slide is anything that the administration or the board wants to do, but when you have to cut things out on a contingency budget, those are the things that you have to look at. So we're hoping that we don't even have to look at that. This slide basically compares us to the county. So this is a total cost per pupil analysis from 11-12, which is the last current full year that we had the information for. So the county average is $18,211. Beacon pays a total cost per pupil of $14,808. So we rank 13th out of 13th for total pupil cost. And also, Beacon ranks 13th out of 13th in administrative cost per pupil. So what this slide basically tells you is that we provide what we provide at the lowest cost in Dutchess County, and that's in comparison to all 12 other districts in the county. So in summary, these are the highlights that we basically want you to remember. Again, our budget-to-budget increase is 1.07%. Our tax levy increase, 2.79%. That is the tax cap, so we are in compliance with that. And again, the proposed budget preserves all of the current programs that Beacon offers right now. Our budget vote is May 21st, which is a week from tomorrow, a week from Tuesday. The polls open at 7 a.m. and they close at 9 p.m. And these are the same two locations that we had last year. All City of Beacon residents go to Beacon High School, and all Fishkill and Wappinger residents will vote in Glenham Elementary School. Does the board have any questions? Okay.
I make my usual statement.
Go right ahead.
I just am looking at the slide for the bus proposition. And I just want to briefly reiterate that we're asking for $367,000. And of the $367,000, we're going to get back almost $229,000 if the bus proposition passes. And if we don't have the bus proposition pass, we have to lease buses on an emergency basis, which means we spend money for a year and get absolutely nothing back. And after that 1 year, we have to go and do it again because we still don't have new buses. So I just wanted to bring that up and kind of emphasize that. It's almost 58% reimbursement from the state of New York. And when we do buy the buses, to my recall, we do this on a 5-year plan.
We have the option on the proposition to either finance them over 5 years or actually pay for them out of the levy, depending on which would be better for us financially. So we have an option when people vote yes. Our buses, Mr. Mackey does a great job with his staff of keeping the buses in good shape. These buses that we're asking to be replaced, the buses have all over 130,000 miles, the large buses, and all the vans have over 200,000 miles. So it's not that we just buy them and use them for a little while and want to turn them over for new. We do use them, a significant amount of mileage is put on the vehicles before they're put into as spares, and then the spares are put out out of service.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone in the public have any questions? Yes.
Two positions that will be retiring that aren't being filled again. What positions are they?
There are two secondary positions. One is a PE position and one is in the middle school, but it has to do with enrollment and numbers. So it doesn't have to do with programs. Anybody else? Yes.
Flora Jones, school taxpayer. Thanks this board for outlining the budget tonight. The first thing that struck me was the psychologist not being a part of the staff. Do we have social workers a part of the staff?
That work here in the district? Yes.
At these critical times with the schools all over this nation, we need as much, professional support to help all humans working here, not just the children, so that we can be ready for any episode. So I'd like you to just consider that as you go through the year. I want to thank the school administration. I want to give credit particularly to Ms. Cavaluso. She was very capable of de-stressing me when I appeared there because I could not vote last year. And that's the first time ever. I'm 76 now. And I started voting my early 20s. First time I could not vote, although I was eligible based on the Board of Elections. But I got to the school, Beacon High, and my records weren't there. But I'm happy to say that I'm ready, God willing, to vote next week, because I did get a letter from the superintendent of business that everything is ready for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you for that. With regards to the DOT, and yes, we get refunds, Colin, we do get reimbursed by the state, but what about other mandated services? Are there other mandated services?
There's a lot of mandated services that are required that are included in the budget, yes.
So how are we doing with that?
I don't understand your question.
In other words,
Because the bus
transportation.
is both separate, because the bus proposition is separate, I think.
I think what we can tell you is you can rest assured that all the services are continuing,
Yes, I got that, and I'm happy.
including the mandated services for all our students are going to be intact, and some of them are funded through grant money.
Okay.
So that works out quite well.
Okay, so that's why we were able to work this budget and get the whatever percentage.
Yes,
keep
that
under the
certainly
cap.
had a great deal to do with
79%, I
it.
think, under the
That's
cap
correct.
because of grants. Give yourselves credit. You might want to include that on the mandated services. The question wouldn't have to be asked. Sense of omission. That's what I would call it, because we would want to know. So basically, I'd like to say I'm in readiness to vote for the children. If nothing changes between now and the 21st, I'm ready. So I thank y'all for serving.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Anne Marie, we'd like to thank you for all of your hard work on putting this budget together and on keeping us up to date as the changes, many changes coming from the state and through our legislatures, the legislature that, did come forward and help us when help was needed. But we appreciate the way this board has worked and your guidance through this process to make it as seamless as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion for executive session?
Motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual.
Second?